So welcome to tonight's meditation. As I mentioned, I would like to read the land acknowledgement. We sit on the traditional territories of many great Indigenous peoples, and I would like to take this opportunity to acknowledge that the land that I'm sitting on is part of the traditional territory of the Chippewa, Ottawa, and the Potawatomi nations. And because of the agreements laid out by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum, this is now considered the home of the Delaware Nation. These First Nations, known as the Anishinaabeg, Lunapui, agreed to mutual sharing of the obligations, responsibilities, and privilege to be stewards of the land and the water. Today, these responsibilities, obligations, and privileges extend to all people. Okay, so I have some poetry that I'd like to read that is sort of in keeping with the theme for tonight's meditation, which will be about noticing, bringing compassion to ourselves. And so the first poem that I'd like to read, noticing, bringing compassion to ourselves, and acceptance. And I need to sort of work with acceptance because I know that because this meditation is being recorded, I'm feeling a little nervous. You know, am I going to stumble on my words? And so I'll have to practice a lot of self-compassion for when I stumble and something doesn't come out quite right. We don't need to be perfect, do we? We just want to be connecting and authentic, and that's the goal, right? So this first poem is one that you've heard me say many, many times, and in fact, not that long ago, but it goes like this, and it's called, Please Come Home by Jane Hooper. Please come home, please come home. Find the place where your feet know to walk and follow your own trail home. Please come home, please come into your own body, your own vessel, your own earth. Please come home into each and every cell and fully into the space that surrounds you. Please come home. Please come home to trusting yourself and your instincts and your ways and your knowings and even the particular quirks of your personality. Please come home. Please come home, and once you are firmly there, please stay home a while and come to deep rest within. Please treasure your home. Please love and embrace your home. Please get a deep, deep sense of what it's like to be truly home. Please come home. Please come home. And when you're really, really ready, and there's a detectable urge on the out breath, then please come out. Please come home and please come forward. Please express who you are to us. And please trust us to see you and hear you and touch you and recognize you as best we can. Please come home. Please come home and let us know all the nooks and crannies that are calling to be seen. Please come home and let us know the more that is there that wants to come out. Please come home. Please come home. And when you feel yourself home, please welcome us too, for we too forget that we belong and are welcome, and that we are called to express and fully be who we are. Please come home. Please come home. You and you and you and me. Thank you, Earth, for welcoming us, and thank you, touch of eyes and ears and skin, touch of love for welcoming us. May we wake up and remember who we truly are. Please come home. Please come home. Please come home. Very moving poem. So this next poem is about being perfect or not so perfect, as the case may be. And it's by Lillian Cohan. And if perfect I could be, oh, if perfect I could be, I would be so good to me. I would be so happy and so pleased with me. I'd make perfect speeches I would only do what's best. People would admire me. I would hardly need to rest. I wouldn't eat junk. I'd make no mistakes. I'd never talk too much. I'd give what it takes. I would make my living doing what I love to do. I'd pray every night. I'd always be true. I'd solve every problem. I'd help everyone. I'd be a perfect mother. I'd have a perfect son. I'd always be peaceful, never sad or depressed. I would be spontaneous. I would sing my best. I'd have a healthy body. I'd do nothing in vain. Failure would not know me. I would not know pain. I would have perfect vision. Oh, how nice it'd be to see how my flaws and faults perfectly perfect me. I like that one too. And then this last one is a very, very old poem by the Sufi poet Rumi. You've heard me say this many times on Tuesday Night Meditation, but because this is being recorded, I really felt like this is something that needs to be shared many times. And so again tonight, and it's called The Guest House. And it goes like this. This being human is a guest house. Every morning, a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness, some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all, even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture. Still, treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. It's always sad that we don't get to discuss these poems and kind of meaning, but that one is really about welcoming all the difficult things that happen in our life, as well as all the joyous things, because it's all important and it all contributes to the fabric of our life and our existence. I thought tonight, since I don't really have much of much any sort of psychoeducational material to share anything new anyway, but I thought it's worth just sort of reviewing some of the helpful tips that contribute to a healthy meditation practice. And I think there are about 8 of them. And so we'll just start with that. And then there's a few other things, but maybe next week I can do that. So I'm just getting some notifications from some folks. I'm sorry if that made a beepy sound or whatever. So tip number 1 to nourish your meditation practice is to practice daily, even for a short time. That may be easier said than done. And I know many of you have heard me say this before, that meditation doesn't always involve the formal practice of sitting still and, in a certain posture or position. We can do many things very, very mindfully, meditatively, even washing the dishes, smelling the smell of the dish soap and the warmth of the water, things like that, noticing on purpose this moment. That's really what we're talking about when it comes to meditation. But this is an interesting thing. There is a question that Rumi, the Sufi poet that I just read, his poem, The Guest House, he sometimes has said in the past, I guess many thousands of years ago, a quote like this that goes, "Do you make regular visits to yourself?" And really what that refers to is, do you ever pause to ask yourself what you're noticing or how you feel about something that might be happening or something that you're noticing? And that's a wonderful way to make a little visit to yourself. And of course, minutes a day of this kind of inquiry and this kind of peace that you can bring to yourself is and can be very, very helpful. So that's what we're talking about. We don't need you to sit for lengths of time, but I don't mind sharing with you that I practice daily meditation in the morning. probably for about 40 minutes before I start my day. Having said that, there are times when I have slept in and I don't get to do that. I really notice how out of sorts I feel when I don't get a chance to do that. It doesn't happen very often, but it does happen. Nobody expects you to do that. That's just something that I like to do. I think it would be very helpful to find what works for you. And tip number two is attitude is everything. And this really refers to the biggest reason that people don't meditate. And that is because very often they are telling themselves that I'm not doing this right. I should be able to do this. My mind shouldn't wander. All those shoulds that I like to say are kind of like when we're shooting on ourselves. So take that for what it means. But yeah, there's nothing that you're supposed to do, or there's no shoulds when it comes to this stuff. Just being really, really gentle and curious and kind to yourself. Um, and that's all I'm going to say about that one. Tip number three is to pay attention to your posture. Um, you don't have to sit like a yogi, and this sort of refers to the earlier point that I was making. It is nice to bring some stillness to yourself, but in whatever comfortable posture that might be, sometimes it's sitting cross-legged, or sometimes it's sitting being supported. Sometimes it might be lying on your back in a reclining position. That's just fine too. Sometimes it might be feet up the wall, or astronaut position, which is where we're kind of on our back and our legs might be resting on the surface of a chair or something. All of those things kind of send a lot of oxygen and blood to your heart, and those positions and postures can be quite rejuvenating. If you haven't tried that, go ahead and try that. It's quite lovely. But um, tip number four is to arrive in your body, which means pausing long enough to notice the posture that you're sitting in. And what can you notice? And we're going to do a little bit of that later. That will be the first meditation practice, is what I like to call just noticing. Tip number five is to select an anchor for presence, or another word for that would be a bit of a home base that you can return to when you notice that your mind has drifted, or been distracted or lost in a thought, planning for the future, or maybe a little bit of, regret about the past, whatever it is. When you notice that you've been not here in this moment, without any judgment, without any shoulds, just come on back. And for many of us, that anchor or home base is our breath, because we can so easily tune into that. Oh yeah, I was breathing in and exhaling, breathing out. And that's a lovely anchor, but it doesn't have to be breath. It can be anything. It can be noticing a body part that is tingling or has a particular sensation. Perhaps your hands or your feet or your belly or your lips, just choosing some area of your body that feels kind of neutral, something that you'd like to come back to. Can also use sounds, especially if you're sitting outdoors and there are birds that are singing, or water that is, washing in and out along a shoreline. That's a beautiful sound. Or water that might be trickling, or any other sound in your environment that might help you to remain right here, right now. And tip number six, I like this one, is to keep coming back. It is completely the habit and nature of mind to travel away, to drift away, to be lost in thought. That's what we humans do. It's part of our humanness. And when we're meditating, the gentle instruction is to come on back. Just keep coming back. And that's a lovely way of building that meditation muscle. And it isn't about getting rid of thoughts. It's about noticing thoughts, and in a very gentle, kind of playful way. Isn't that interesting? I was thinking about this, or I was remembering that, or, oh, I was making my grocery list. And we can very gently say, not right now. Come on back to this moment. So that was tip number six. And then tip number seven is to think about deepening your presence, your mindful presence, by asking yourself two questions. And if you notice, when we meditate together, I very often will ask you to notice something. And that is kind of the first question is, what is happening inside me right now? And pausing. And in that pause, noticing what your breath is doing. Is it rapid? Is it shallow? Is it deep? Is it comfortable? Is there ease or is there a little bit of tightness? What can you notice about your breath or any other sensation that you might be aware of in your body? What is happening inside me right now? Is a wonderful question to ask. And the next one is, sometimes we notice difficult things. And the question that we can ask ourselves is, can I be with this? It might be very uncomfortable. And sometimes in that discomfort, if we name it to tame it, if we label it, it gives us a little bit of space from that thing that can feel almost intolerable or difficult. For instance, if we notice there's a little bit of anxiety, some fear, or some tension, just noticing that. For me, right now in this moment, because of this recording, I'm noticing a little bit of an urgency, a little bit of a little tiny bit of judgment there about, oh, I fumbled and stumbled in my words. And then can I bring some compassion to that? And can I accept? And that's kind of what we practice. And the last tip for meditation practice is tip number 8, which is to remember kindness. If you do encounter difficult emotions such as fear, confusion, sadness, or hurt, or shame, or disappointment, can you offer yourself kindness? And right now, that's what I kind of have to practice. Like, Brenda, this meditation, this recording, I'd like it to be perfect. It's not going to be. That's okay. Can I be with this? And I'm accepting. I'm radically accepting it. Yeah, I'm human. It's not going to be perfect. So yeah, like that. Remembering kindness to yourself, especially if your mind is particularly busy or active. Can you say, wow, it's been quite a day. And so maybe it's a little more difficult today to kind of settle into it. Can we be gentle with that? Noticing whatever you can notice with gentleness, and allowing this to kind of sink in and kind of release, the pressure that you might be feeling. And the interesting thing about that is that when we can be that kind and gentle with ourselves, it so often ripples out into our world. And that's sort of the number one reason why I like to always end our Tuesday evening meditations with loving kindness meditation. And I hope to do that tonight. But if for some reason I get a little distracted in one of the meditations and I run out of time, well, there's always next week, right? Okay. So let's begin with a noticing meditation. This is very similar to things that I like to do with you, but whenever I find something new to practice, I like to do that with you because then I hope that I can somehow incorporate it into the meditations that we do all the other times. I always love to learn something new, and I always like to share that with you. So, okay. And so as we very often start these meditations, and I think I've asked most of you to sort of adopt your comfortable meditation posture, but I'll invite you to do that again. And even just before we start that, it never hurts to kind of do a little bit of a stretch, reaching your arms above your head, letting some blood flow down into your arms, and then maybe even sort of pointing your toes and flexing your legs, those large muscles in your legs, pointing your toes, maybe creating a little bit of tension, and then let's breathe in. And as we exhale, let's release that tension and relax back into our comfortable posture. Okay, and so this meditation involves nothing more than noticing. Noticing that you're sitting or reclining or whatever your posture is in this meditation tonight, noticing points of contact. And that usually means, our buttocks, our back, maybe where our hands are resting, our arms, feet might be resting on the floor. In this next moment, noticing the feeling of that kind of connection to whatever surface you're resting on. Really bringing your focused awareness to that sensation. Noticing where your feet are, what they might be touching or resting on. Perhaps noticing other sensations in your body, your hands. Can you be aware of your fingertips and your palms? And the next one is to be aware of the sensations of breathing. So taking a moment now to be aware of whatever you're able to notice in this moment. And in this meditation, there is this lovely comparison, how sometimes our minds and our thoughts can start to whirl and twirl. And sometimes it can become very busy or fast inside. And this person suggests that it might be much like a hurricane. And so using the metaphor of the hurricane to help us understand our own true nature, it can help us understand the ways that mindfulness practice can be helpful in observing what is happening and occurring around us and inside us. And with the goal of bringing spaciousness in this time of busyness. So if our thoughts are whirling and twirling, and it's really hard sometimes to find our center, to find some peace. And the first step in that is to notice that. It may not be happening for you right now, but if it does, this is something that you can use to help yourself become a little more conscious of that and a little more centered. And it involves the breath, as so often our meditations do. I'm going to invite you to take in 3 deep and slow breaths, and a little deeper and a little bit slower each time, and certainly slower and deeper than we breathe when we're just, sitting and going about our daily life. So in this moment, bringing awareness as you breathe in, filling your chest and lungs, and without even so much as a pause, exhaling, letting go, letting go. And we're going to do that 3 more times. Breathing in, filling the chest and lungs, and without pausing, exhaling, slowly, slowly releasing and letting go. And 1 more time, breathing in, filling your chest and lungs, and without pausing, exhaling, breathing out, letting go, letting go. So it's said that the hurricane in our minds arises when things are just right for it to happen, and that happens in nature as well. Um, the winds and the changing temperatures are all kind of very much like our own lives sometimes. Um, and, the winds and the conditions, they come and they go. And so let's look at a few of the different aspects of the hurricane and see how it really does connect to our own thoughts, feelings, and sensations, and the spaciousness and ease that we can find within our agitated thoughts, feelings, and sensations. Um, There are times when we experience agitation and frustration in the body. Something happens that doesn't feel very comfortable or right or fair. We add a lot of extra information to it. And then that manifests in some tension in our body. And much like the strong, gusty winds and heavy rains that feed into a hurricane, we might sort of notice that things can kind of create that tension in ourselves as well. We might be able to reflect for a moment on times when we have felt that kind of intensity in the body, the tension and the tightness. So I'd like to invite you to perhaps recall in this moment something that happened, maybe today, yesterday, or recently that kind of created a bit of tension or tightness in you, that feeling of, I'm not sure I like this. I'm not sure I'm happy about this. I'm going to give you a little bit of time to think about that because sometimes it's hard to recall things like that in the moment. So just take a bit of time here to recall something that happened recently in your life or something that you were made aware of that just created some tension and frustration a little bit. Not a huge amount, but some, definitely some. Mm. And with that noticing what's happening in your body in relation to that event, noticing thoughts as well. Because very often when something happens that we don't like or that we don't agree with, even if it's someone else who's doing it, we might become judgmental of that person. And that's really normal. The example that I think of is we're minding our own business, driving along, and somebody thoughtlessly cuts us off. And the first thought we might have is like, what an idiot. And that's definitely a judgment. And, it happens. You're human. And the next thing that we might say is, why are there so many bad drivers? And then notice what happens when you might think something like that. And notice the intensity of sort of and the heaviness and the thoughts and how they swirl, and how that's much like the high level clouds of a hurricane as they swirl and perhaps build. We might take note of the thoughts that are arising in your mind right now. And it may not be about a bad driver, it might be about something else. And I'd like you to kind of notice how, with your reaction to that situation, how maybe, just maybe, there were some things that you said to yourself in that moment that kind of escalated or created more clouds, if you will, in the hurricane of that situation. And even as you recall that, taking note of the thoughts that are arising in your mind right now, that carry some of that judgment, that harshness or reactivity. And for a moment, notice as you breathe and as you're recalling these kind of difficult things that you're recalling, notice what's happening with your breath. I certainly notice in myself that it's not as easy to breathe as when we did our first 3 breaths. There's an increase in tension and tightness. And these are the moments that we experience throughout our lives. It's part of being human, especially with intense emotions like anger and fear that are really like the thick wall of swirling hurricane clouds. And these extreme conditions that need to be present to create that thick wall of hurricane clouds. You may notice that this is kind of how it feels, that tension and tightness. because of the things that was encouraging you to recall, and because you're human, um, and so am I. We know that these things happen sometimes many times a day. And it might even be a rare, peaceful day that things didn't happen that caused us to get a little agitated. But also, this is very, very important to remember that you are not the clouds of these hurricanes. You are not the things that happen that create tension and tightness. These are like the weather. And these are the things that happen to you, but they are not you. And it's also worth saying that as you also are aware of the times that are tense and tight and uncomfortable, there are also many times when you experience inner calm, much as is found within the eye of the storm. And that's really true. Think of those sort of photographs that we see of storm clouds and hurricanes forming, and how in the midst of the swirling clouds and storms that we can see on those radar images, there is within it a place of calm, a place of calm. And this is a reminder that we don't have to have the intense and agitated thoughts and feelings and sensations. We can dip into a place of inner calm and tranquility, so that even in this moment, this is hard right now, but can we take a breath in and sort of take some shelter in the eye of that storm? And they recommend doing this by shifting into an observing state where we find some freedom from the intensity of those thoughts and feelings and sensations. It's like finding our way into the eye of the storm, into a place of our own safe refuge without needing anything to change. So imagine that intense thoughts and feelings are swirling around you. They may be your own thoughts and feelings, or they may be someone else's. But what happens if you can pause for a moment, take a breath in, and dip into that quiet place, the eye of the storm, so to speak, and actually bringing that peace and calm just by taking a breath? And how often do we do that? Sometimes our body does that automatically with a deep and heavy sigh. But instead of letting it happen automatically, can we slow that down and on purpose, very mindfully, take in a deeper breath? Breathing in deeply and exhaling very slowly. Letting ourselves settle into the body, aware of our thoughts, aware of the feelings that are swirling and kind of coming and going into our awareness. Noticing sensations in the body that might be connected to thoughts, feelings, and gentle awareness of the respite that the breath can provide. Falling back to the breath and a simple breathing practice. In this meditation, they offer some complicated breathing practices, and I'm just going to encourage us to breathe in, maybe to the count of 4, and exhale to the count of 5 or 6. The key is having a slow and gentle breath in and a longer breath out, just ever so slightly longer. So I'd like to create some space for you to do that right now. I I helped you to create the hurricane of your thoughts. And right now, let's dip into that safe refuge that we can bring to ourselves anytime, but most especially in Tuesday night meditation, dipping into that tranquil place, breathing in very gently, filling our chest and lungs. And I'd like you to do this on your own so that my suggestions don't create any tension in you, thinking that, oh, she's counting ahead or I'm not there yet. Just taking the next few moments to breathe, counting to 4 as you breathe in. And as you exhale, counting to 5 or even 6, whatever feels comfortable. So I invite you to do that now. Keep going. This time, when you're exhaling, try making a sound as you exhale, like this. Breathing in through your nose if you can to the count of 4. And as you exhale to the count of 5 or 6, breathing out with sound. Taking a moment to breathe in just that way. Few more moments of quiet, rhythmic breathing. Letting your breath resume its normal, natural rhythm, whatever that might be. Pausing here for a moment or two, letting yourself settle. Mhm. Inquiring with yourself a little bit. What was that like? Did that metaphor of the hurricane, did that land well with you? Or was it something that was uncomfortable? So it's important information. And if it was uncomfortable, can you be curious and try to learn why it was uncomfortable? Or if it was even comfortable, Can you be curious and learn why you found that it was comfortable or it worked well for you? And all of this is really helpful information because you're important. And even if you don't get a chance to share that directly with me, it's well worth sending the message to yourself that your thoughts and feelings, your likes, your dislikes, they are important, most especially to you. In a moment, I'm going to chime the bowl and we'll let that mark the end of our noticing meditation, our noticing and being in the eye of the hurricane meditation. Chiming the bowl now. And if your eyes were closed, opening them very gently and coming back, maybe adjusting your posture because that was a fairly long sit. So you might want to stretch again. That's always helpful. Maybe leaning to the left in that stretch and then leaning to the right in that stretch. And even dropping your hand, and I'm dropping my right hand behind me, just to feeling a little bit of a pull there. That feels so good. And then same, don't hurt yourself. And then just trying to kind of almost in this moment, see if you can touch your shoulder blades together. And what that does is open the chest, and that can kind of feel good. And then relaxing, and that also feels good. Nice breath in. And a nice exhale out. Just like that with sound. One more like that, breathing in. Filling your chest and lungs and out with sound. Nice. Very nice. Okay, so we've got about 15 minutes. And this is another interesting self-compassion practice that actually, if I look at it, incorporates quite a bit of loving kindness within it. And I may tailor it a little bit because those of you who've been with me for a while now know that there are some specific things that just feel so right for me to say out loud and with you, and knowing that we're all on the same page with that and kind of, together in our loving kind intentions. So I may add some things, but I just want you to know to get ready because this self-compassion practice incorporates that too. So the instruction here is to notice that, it says notice any reactivities that are coming from you. And what might that be? I'd like to think that since we sort of wrapped up with the noticing / hurricane meditation, that maybe there's been some release, some relief as well. But if not, we can always remember to take in some deep conscious breaths. And we'll just do that again because it never hurts to breathe deeply. In fact, it does our hearts and our minds so much good. So, and I'm going to invite you to turn your attention in a very purposeful way as you breathe in. And the suggestion is to take in 2 breaths. So doing that in whatever way is going to work for you. If it's a deeper breath in through your nose and then gentle, slow exhale out, let's do that now. Breathing in, filling chest and lungs, and slow exhale out. And one more like that. And when you feel the urge, a slow exhale out. Good. And now, as best you can, following your natural breathing rhythm, whatever that might be. And it changes throughout the day, doesn't it? If we're walking briskly, it might be a little bit rapid. If we're lying down or resting, it's usually much slower. Noticing your breath right now in this meditation practice. And as you're resting with the breath, along with any sensations, just resting there in your awareness of your breath or any body sensations. We didn't do a body scan meditation, but we can briefly touch into that a little bit if we want. I'm going to invite you to notice if there are any places of tension or tightness that you're aware of in this moment. And wherever that might be, imagine breathing into that place of tension or tightness. And as you exhale, that gentle invitation to let go, release, and let go. And again, maybe there's another place in your body that's also a little bit tense and tight. Let's do that again. Breathing in to the tension and tightness. And as we exhale, releasing and letting go. Letting go. And one more time, noticing if there's any particular place that has just become tense or tight. As it happens, we let go, and then the next moment, it's back again. And when you notice that, as frustrating as it might be, it's really, really normal. And you have this unique ability to breathe into that place of tension or tightness, really focusing on it. And then as you exhale, releasing, letting go, softening. And in that softening, perhaps noticing that there's a bit of a soothing, kind of gentle heaviness. And that's gravity. We're being held in a loving embrace by gravity. Resting there for a moment. And in the next breath, allow your mind to gently recall a desire and a will that you might have inside yourself. Intention for peace that begins with you. For peace and well-being that can begin right here and right now, within you, within me, within our bodies and being, in our minds, our bodies, our spirit. What do we wish for or pray for? Peace, equanimity, justice, fairness, kindness, really touching in to those deeper, heartfelt desires and intentions. Letting them grow and bloom in our hearts and our minds. Taking a lovely, gentle breath in and perhaps noticing how this resonates in and around your heart. Knowing that it exists there. Pausing there. Really bringing in and almost bathing yourself in the lightness and the warmth of all of that love. This warm, loving softness within you. And our heart's desire for justice and a positive community, for global change. As much as possible, allow yourself to completely feel the compassion that you have for everyone who's suffering. And that really means all of us, because no one doesn't know suffering. It includes you and me and so many others that we see in our world, that we hear about, that we learn about. And for those who are suffering greatly in the world, in the midst of war, poverty, hunger, injustice, discrimination, fear, letting our hearts be open and gentle, compassionate toward those of us who suffer in all of these ways. So as you're breathing in and out, breathing in the sense of awareness of the love in your heart. Breathing in and out with awareness of the love. And as you're exhaling very, very consciously on the power of that breath, we send loving support towards all of those who we believe are in need in this moment. Spend some time here. And I will invite you to repeat some of those loving, kind words that we very often repeat. May all beings everywhere be healthy. May all beings everywhere be healthy and have a body-mind that gives energy and strength, stability, wisdom, and healing. May all beings everywhere, including ourselves, be healthy. Breathing in, and as we exhale, letting the power of those loving, kind intentions travel to those who we believe are in need at this very moment. And the next loving, kind intention that I'd like to offer goes like this. May all beings everywhere, including myself, be safe and protected from all sorts of inner and outer harms and burdens, to be free from suffering. May all beings everywhere, including myself, be safe. May all beings everywhere, including myself, be safe.